I'm here at Sunbelt Media Days with James Madison head coach Bob Chesney. Coach Chesney, thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I guess first place to start would go backwards. Last year, you win 8 games regular season, win the bowl game.
Yeah.
Where does it sit? Because didn't win the Sun Belt, but a lot of successes you can point to for what you were able to do in year one.
Yeah, probably unfortunately, for me, from the successes, there are some lessons, but really from the failures, there's more. And I think that's where I find myself as a head coach is focused on trying to make sure we learn those lessons and don't let them repeat themselves. So it's a nice year, I think, obviously to win the first ever bowl game, to have the game we did against North Carolina. Those are things that I think will live in, JMU history, obviously. But at the same point in time, there's 2 games in there that we dropped that, still sit poorly with us at this moment in time, probably a third even. And I think those are things that, we just got to make sure that we learn from those lessons, from coaches to players to everybody involved in the program and grow from that. So I'm excited about the growth. I'm excited about the positive momentum we finished with. It's not often you get to finish with positive momentum, and win a game. But we had the ability to do that, and I thought it was a great way to send out our seniors and just bring that community together down in Boca and finish the season that way. So a nice ending to the year, a great ending actually to the year, and just a couple bumps along the way that we got to make sure that we smooth out.
And I guess the best part about a league like the Sun Belt, maybe you'll drop a game you shouldn't, but odds are you'll play that team the next year, especially if they're in the East. So you've got a chance for rectifying that.
That's correct.
You obviously came from the FCS. You brought some players with you last year. You've done the same this year with bringing some players from the FCS. What translates from that level to here, any level of football, to the top level that you look for in these players?
That they played football. I think that's one of the things that you see a lot of guys that are, 4-star, 3-4-star guys that are at a higher level and have not played any downs that are coming down. And I think that that has not worked for us in our experimentation with it over the past year. So I think for us it was the ability to say, okay, I've seen him play a lot of football. There's a lot of film that we could evaluate and understand the strengths and weaknesses of that person's game. And then we got to be able to watch and make sure it's our type of guys. We don't want to bring guys in here that are just great football players but not our type of player. And what I mean by that is they got to be guys that are just relentlessly committed to the process of staying positive, attention to detail and attacking every single thing that they do, and truly are passionate and love playing this game. They have to love playing the game, and if they don't, it's not going to work. So I think those are things that we've done a better job of as we went through it this year. But truly watching guys, D2 guys, FCS guys, those guys that have played a lot of snaps at a high level, usually can predict other successes.
You lose some key players on defense. You have to make a change in defensive coordinator. How do you keep the consistency from what you're able to do year one in that side of the ball going into this year?
Yeah, well, that was a big part of what we did when we brought in Coach Hitschler. That was part of our whole interview process, was making sure we could keep some things the same, but then identify the weaknesses that we might have had a year ago, and making sure that we have a plan to address those, and someone that has a history of having the ability to cure some of those ills. So that's been a big part of what we've been able to do here, is that there's some things that will look very similar and exactly the same, and there'll be a bunch of stuff that doesn't. And I think that's been a big part for our guys. When you're play that good of defense, and you turn the ball over and get it turned over that many times and disrupt the ball that many times, it's important that you don't just throw that away and say, let's go with a whole new system. So there's things we held on to, and there's also things that we're going to change.
On the other side of the ball, you had Alonzo Barnett last year, had a good season. You also brought in, maybe partially because of the injury, but you brought in 2 guys, one of whom, Matthew Sluka, you coached at Holy Cross. Those 3 guys know there's only one football, and I guess in this world especially, where it's really easy to at quarterback to have guys want to be somewhere they know they're going to play. What messages are you saying to them when you're bringing them in that they all wanted to be a part of it at once, knowing at least one of them's not going to start?
Yeah, I think for me it was just being transparent and honest throughout that process, is that we are not sure of exactly where Alonzo's at and when he'll be ready, and at the same point in time we need to have guys that are able to compete. We went through it last year with Alonzo, and then behind Alonzo was a guy that we brought in that actually had an injury and really couldn't go in games and be able to throw as the backup quarterback, because we got to, at the moment when Alonzo was hurt, he was also hurt. So then we had our 3rd and 4th string guys that actually started the bowl game, and I thought did a phenomenal job. But in that position room, you don't want to just have one, right? It's hard to make it through the full season, in any position group. So to be able to have at least two, to have a third, but to not know where Alonzo is going to be, and then have the ability to say this is, a program where you compete and you earn your spot every single year. I think that's all that those guys wanted to ask for. That's what great competitors do, is they want to compete.
Getting picked first in the East, 11 of the 14 first place votes. That gives expectation, but I'm sure you have expectation already. Is that kind of the place you want to be at, where people know that you're the team?
Yeah, like for me, anywhere I've been, we've been the hunted, right? And I think when you get to JMU, just on name brand alone, you're already the hunted. There's not anybody that walks in and you're going to sneak up on. And regardless of if you had 64 new guys a year ago, people still know the brand of football that's going to be played there, and I think that's important. That we understand that. But whatever the outside expectations are, that has no motivating factor for us. Our internal expectations are, even higher than whatever the outside might be. So our ability to handle those expectations with our standards each and every day is where we spend all of our time and our focus.
And I don't want to say you got your start in special teams, but part of your duties when you were early on in your coaching career, special teams, I feel like you brought that forward. What does it take to get game-changing special teams out? Because it's something every coach, every team is looking to get, but not everyone's able to capitalize on that.
Yeah, so I think you got to spend time on it. I think a lot, and I think you have to figure out, is it important to you as a head coach? If you're an offensive head coach that's going to spend all the time with the quarterbacks and never watch a special team drill and never even see it take place, and you're going to put some lower level coach in charge of it, and he's doesn't get any buy-in from any of the other coaches, I think it really starts at the top. And I think for myself to understand how important special teams are, we've won a lot of games because of special teams. We also lost games because of special teams. And I think it's important for me to make sure that the team knows I'm in every drill. I am present in every single special teams meeting. I don't know if I've ever missed one in my 15 years as a head coach. So I think that's a really important part, is that the head coach has the first ultimate piece of buy-in and shows that to the players, knows what he's talking about in those meetings and can add value in those meetings, and then get on the field and identify, and be able to coach those guys up. And all of a sudden they go, man, if the head coach is involved in this, it's important. So it's ultimately, that's probably the key to the whole thing in my mind.
And the last thing I wanted to ask every one of the coaches speaking today, the same question, just have one general thing across them. And
yeah.
What's the best piece of advice you received that made you a better football coach over your career?
I think for me, what would be the best piece of advice? Oh man, there's ultimately a lot. I think that whether it's a piece of advice or if it's it goes back to knowing, the players knowing that you care about them. I think that's probably, especially now in today's day and age, that's one of the biggest and most important things. And you know it. They don't care what you know if they don't know that you care. And I think that's the important part, is that we got to make sure that we truly do care about these guys. So I personally try to have a relationship with almost every single guy on our team, especially with the leadership council, but ultimately with every single guy on our team. I want to make sure that they know that I know who they are and that I care a lot about them. I think that, to me, again, can move mountains as far as the human element of the game is concerned, because it doesn't always come down to X's and O's. A lot of times we've been outmatched, out-schemed, out everything, and still won games, because of how hard we'll play for each other.
Coach Chesney, thank you. Best of luck this season.
Yeah, thanks so much. Appreciate it.